What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of DRZ Airsoft. In today's video, we are going to talk about a topic that I have waited a very long time to talk about, and that is my own personal experience at my very first Milsim West. So I've been playing Airsoft for about 13 years now, give or take about 13 years, and as a young kid, I've always wanted to go to a Milsim event. I've been to a few quote-unquote Milsim events in my lifetime, but I've never been to a Milsim West event. I was actually supposed to go to a Insurgency game in 2020, but due to COVID, that game got canceled. And unfortunately, COVID kind of put a damper on my experience of being able to get out and go play at a Milsim West event for a couple of years. So this year I went ahead and I put together my own impression kit, and the game that I went to was Milsim West Shali Assault. This was located, I'm gonna butcher the name of this, Muscatatuck Urban Training Center. I believe I pronounced that right. This event was really cool because it takes place at an Army Urban Training Center. What's cool about this Urban Training Center is that they set up sections at this training center to kind of cover like different themes of natural disaster. So you have like a flooded neighborhood, there's all sorts of stuff. It's really cool. I decided to go with the Gun Gamers. I've known the Gun Gamers for ages. They're a great group of guys. The Gun Gamers for the past couple years have been going as Task Force Keg. Task Force Keg is a U.S Army 10th Mountain Division impression group. So most of their kits are very basic in nature. They're not going to be like your high-speed, Ranger kits or anything of that nature. They're not going to be like your super special forces type kits. It's basically the most like basic U.S. GI military style kit, and we tend to do kind of a mixture of like throwback style kits, so you're going to see a lot of ACU involved with our impression, some mixtures of multicam in there, but typically our impression group is going to be kind of 2008 through 2012 style general issue U.S. Army military equipment. In terms of putting kits together, there was a lot of resources to go to figure out what I needed for this event. When building this kit, I talked to like James, Carlos, who are in the Army, very basic, just U.S. Army style kit, but a bit on the outdated side a little bit as well. So I'm gonna go over my kit here to show you what I had to wear for 40 hours straight. This is a U.S. Army Gen 1 IOTV. I got this on the internet. Everything you see here I was able to get off like eBay. It really was not that hard to source the materials for this kit. One of the requirements for this impression group that I am part of is that you have to wear weighted plates in your IOTV so that it has the simulated weight of wearing real plates as you would in combat. As cool as this thing is, it's also very heavy. This full rig weighs about 30 pounds fully loaded with my dummy plates and my mags, just about everything on there, water too, water, night vision. So this was a lot to wear for an event. This is just something that I have never done before, and it proved to be kind of a bit of a challenge because typically when I'm playing Airsoft on the weekends with my Cry CPC replica that I have, it does not weigh 30 pounds. It maybe weighs close to like 5 pounds at most. So it's a huge weight difference for me. This is basically kind of what you would see on a U.S. Army soldier. I know the Army's kind of upgraded to more modern versions of this plate carrier. There's like different generations of it. This is like probably one of the older generations of it, but it still kind of fit the purpose for what I needed it to do for this impression, and it was approved to be used for this impression, so this is what I wore. And then one of the other unique things that I did for this game to kind of add to the realism is I went ahead and I ran a gas blowback M4. It's got a functioning bolt similar to a real M4. This is an airsoft gun that is built by KWA. Some of you may remember, I actually did a review on this years ago. Here is our LM4. This is actually the first time I run it since I bought this gun, believe it or not. I never actually fielded it or used it for any other airsoft game. So to be able to run this for the first time and find a use for it was a lot of fun. So this thing held up extremely well for Milsim West, and I can't say enough about it. But yeah, so that was really cool. So this was my rifle. I also had to wear a U.S. Army ACH helmet. This is a real Kevlar helmet. All of us in my impression group basically wear these things. They got some weight to them because, you know, they're made out of Kevlar. A lot of us in Keg like to wear this like camo netting, and this was fun kind of putting together. So overall, besides the game itself, one of the fun things about Milsim West was sourcing all the materials to put together my impression kit. And it really wasn't too hard to do. Luckily, this impression was pretty cheap and affordable. Most of the stuff has been phased out by the Army already, being from like 2008. That being said, it's still a lot of gear that I had to find and source, but it was fun. It's the first time I got to really work on an impression, so I really enjoyed this portion of kind of the Milsim West experience of putting together the actual impression itself. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the game. So I ended up driving down with a couple friends from the Gun Gamers. It was pretty fun. You know, we had to find some hotels along the way. If you did it total like 8 hours from New York to Indiana, I'm not entirely sure because we split it up between 2 days, but it was a lot of fun. So it was a good drive. So when we got there, how they do it is everyone kind of parked in an open field. They split up the two teams, Rus 4 and NATO, on different sides of the training center. They had all of NATO kind of park in the same area, and basically as soon as you get there, you start unloading and packing your gear. You start getting all your stuff ready. You start going over your gear, checking, you know, to make sure you have everything for your gun, checking your ruck, making sure you're not missing any items that you would need to sustain 40 hours at this event. There's a little bit of kind of like a hurry up and wait going on at this point. But anyway, we started gearing up, and then from there, from the parking lot, we took all of our gear and we started rucking over to, I believe they called it like the soccer stadium or something like that, or the parade field. And what's kind of unique about a Milsim West game is they do their check-in process a little differently. They send you something called orders in an email prior to the event, and you have to bring the orders with you to the event. On this order sheet, you have to go through all the different points of check-in. So like one of the points is going to be a gear check. So your cadre, whoever is your cadre associated with your impression group or your specific group, will go through with you and check every individual piece of your kit to make sure you're not missing any required items for the event prior to play. This is very important because for someone who's never been to one of these events, they want to make sure that you're ready to go for this event. You could be out in the cold for 40 hours long. It could be raining. It could be freezing. You want to make sure that you're ready to go. So your cadre will go through with you and make sure you have everything checked off. They're making sure you don't have any, you know, illegal substances on you, no contraband, anything of that nature, especially when you are going to be on a government training facility playing this game. You can't have anything of that nature whatsoever on a property like that. It's very important that Milsim West does these checks and regulations, and then like second to that, blank fire is involved at these games, so you got to make sure that like no live ammunition whatsoever makes it out on this field. So it's important that gear checks are done by the cadre at these games. So going down through your orders, one of the next things you will do is they call it like a medical screening. It's not really a invasive process or anything. They're just checking to make sure that you have a medical card on your body, usually on your right shoulder of your kit. That's called your medical screening. Once you check off that process, you will get a Milsim West tourniquet. You are given one tourniquet for this event. In the event that you are hit, another teammate can use that tourniquet and they can revive you. So it's kind of like an extra life. Once you pass medical screening, you will go to chrono. Chrono means that they are going to chrono check your airsoft gun to make sure that it is within the legal limits of the event, as well as the chrono check. At the same time, they do a blank fire check as well. So if you're running blank fire at these events, you will meet with a blank fire personnel. They will go over your blank fire gun, make sure that you have the proper safety requirements for that gun. So you go through those orders. There's a lot to them. This whole process takes a little while, anywhere from 3 to 4 hours. So you're kind of standing around with all your gear laid out. You're not obviously wearing all your rucks and gear at this time. You kind of dismount all your gear. There's a lot of sitting, waiting. I know I got there at about 3 or 4 o'clock Friday, and the check-in process ended, I want to say like 5 o'clock or so. But then from there, you were basically waiting in this parade field until like 10:30 at night when the game actually started. So there was a lot of waiting. Once it gets time for the game to start, just before the game, you will do a briefing with Josh Warren, who's one of the co-owners of Milsim West. He's kind of like the big hat in the whole event. He will go over like all the things you need to know about the field itself, everything you need to know about the AO what you should do, what you shouldn't do, all the safety stuff, all the precautions, because at this urban training center, there was a lot of buildings that you were not allowed to go into for safety reasons and for whatever reasons the Army had. So you'll go through like a briefing process. It's not too long. That maybe took like, I don't know, 15 minutes at most. Josh Warren's a super funny guy. He kept it energetic. And then once that's done, you kind of get your gear, you get everything up, you get ready to go. We had our guys kind of line up infantry style in a line based on the squads that they were in. They will kind of divide you up into whatever platoon you were supposed to be in with your group. So this is something you should have already known kind of ahead of time. So for me, I was part of 7-3. I believe there was many different platoons and squads mixed up of Keg. And then from there, the game just basically kicks off. And this was kind of the fun part because the way they sent us out is they didn't just send you out all in one murder ball. They sent you out like platoon at a time based on how your command wanted you to go out or what objective you had first. So like for us, they sent out the A portion of 7-3 first because it was divided into two groups, A and B. I was part of B. We had intel that there is a plane crash on site, plane crash, quote unquote. There's a dismantled aircraft on this urban training center. We were given orders that there could potentially be intel located in this area or a downed pilot that we'd have to rescue. So that was kind of Keg's orders for Friday night. Like that was our main objective, is we had to find this pilot, if there was a pilot, and rescue him, or we had to find medic water or intel, whatever it be, get to this plane, figure out what's going on, and then get the heck out of there. The idea was 7-3A was going to go ahead of us, and they were going to scout the area just before this kind of airplane wreckage to kind of look for enemies. And then my group 7-3B was kind of to stay back and kind of wait until we got orders to move up with 7-3A to then advance on the aircraft. So 7-3A went out just a little bit before us. We had all of our gear, our rucks on us at this point. My group was kind of tasked with getting to kind of a railroad train yard area. The idea was we were going to drop our rucks there so that we didn't have that much weight on us, so that we could kind of be a quick reaction force to get into this airplane, find this pilot, and get out. We kind of crossed the train tracks. We did this all under night vision. We got to where we needed to be. There was two other squads. Their objective was to stay there and watch our gear while 7-3 went out to the aircraft to search for the pilot. We drop our rucks, and then we started to kind of follow this tree line to meet up with 7-3A. So, we're following the tree line. We meet up with 7-3A. They were dug in pretty well in the tree line. They didn't really see anything going on towards the plane. I don't know if there was a miscommunication in the command. The original idea was to stay as close to this tree line on this one side of the map as possible so we could get up to this aircraft without, being detected under thermals or night vision whatsoever from the enemy. I don't know whose idea this was. Really stupid. It wasn't my idea. Again, I was just kind of a basic bitch during this whole thing. I was just there for the experience. We ended up crossing the field in the middle of the night over a hill heading down towards the aircraft, which, I'm sorry, but if you're in the Army, is like the worst thing you can do. You should never go to an open field. You should avoid fields if all possible, especially at nighttime, because there's a picture of what it looks like if you're standing on top of this field at night. Whoever is standing on that hill, you're just a black silhouette to anybody else with night vision looking up on that hill. So this was a really dumb idea. I didn't like it, but I just kind of put up with it. And we began crossing over this hill towards this downed plane wreckage. Luckily, there was no enemies there, because if there was, we would have gotten the shit kicked out of us. And we made it to the wreckage site. We made it down to the aircraft. We kind of set up positions, defensive positions when we were there. We did not find a pilot at the aircraft. We did find a case of medic water. From there, we were like, okay, we got to get the heck out of here now. So we picked up our defensive positions, and then we started walking back across this open field with a hill. Nobody wanted to carry the water. I'm not sure why. People go, oh, someone carry the water. Everyone just kind of looks around. So I was like, fine, I'll do it. So I grabbed this whole case of water. Mind you, I'm wearing 30 pounds of bullshit gear or whatever. So I picked up this case of water. We began crossing back over the field. Again, luckily nobody engaged us at this time. We got back to our rucks. We dropped off the water. And then from there, I'm not sure why, they decided to send us back to the aircraft for some reason. The place that we just exfilled out of. I don't know why, really dumb. So same thing, 7-3 got together. This time we followed a little bit more along a kind of ATV path. We followed the ATV path under the cover of night. Wasn't that bad because we already knew there wasn't really anyone there. We got to the airplane wreckage, and we kind of put up defensive positions there. It was at this point that we had a couple members of our group started not feeling well. I don't know if they just ate something bad before or the night before. A buddy of mine, he was really struggling. Like, he was basically like close to vomiting at this point. And, same thing with another friend of mine. He was probably dehydrated, I want to be honest. I'm not entirely sure. But to be respectful towards them, I'm not going to name any names. So what ended up happening is we all moved back down to this plane. We went back to the place that we originally exfilled out of. And at this time, Russ 4 swept around through the train yard, eliminated whatever groups were at our rucks trying to protect our rucks, and then held the area that our rucks were at. So why this was important is because all of the gear that each of us needed to sustain cold weather throughout the night was on our ruck systems that we just left behind across the entire map, right? So this was a really crappy scenario. We kind of made the decision. We had a couple guys not feeling well. We sent the majority of my squad 7-3 to go back up to where our rucks were, try to deal with the enemy if they can, try to get our rucks and get out. We needed to get that gear because otherwise it was going to be a very long night for us if we didn't have that gear. A couple of our groups, they went out, and this lasted quite a while. You could hear some engagements happening on the field. I'm not really sure what happened at this point because I was there to kind of watch the guys that were not feeling too well at this time, kind of pulling security on this aircraft that, was sitting on this field. Probably there for a good 2 hours or so, just pulling security. You could hear fighting going off over the hill. There was a lot of engagements happening. I feel like I missed a pretty good firefight at this point. I'm not really sure what was happening. Sadly, our guys were unable to secure our rucks. We couldn't get to our rucks. It was like there's just no way. The enemy had it so well defended. So now we were in a really crappy position where we were separated from the rest of our gear that we needed for that event. The temperature was starting to drop. It was starting to get closer to, I want to say, the 30s at night. And a lot of us didn't have the proper cold weather gear, so it was starting to get a little chilly. We kind of got sick and tired of waiting there to figure out what was going on. We did not have really good communication. So I took my group, the guys that I was supposed to watch, we decided to kind of hang left of this airplane up along this fence to kind of meet up with what we thought was, I think, 7-1. We could hear the leader of 7-1. We could hear Abby's voice over the hill, so we knew that was a friendly. So we were like, okay, I think that's 7-1. Let's try to regroup with 7-1 and see if we can get with them just to figure out what the heck's going on. We met back up. We found 7-1. Not really a good area. We were kind of in the open on a hill. This is right in the open on the hill. And it was at this same exact point that Russ 4 decided to make a huge advance on this hill at nighttime. And they just swept the hill. Anyone who was on this hill just got completely, I want to say, just wiped out by Russ 4. It was not a good time. But by this point, it was probably 2:30 in the morning. It was starting to get cold. We were just kind of miserable. So they pulled us out of there. We were all dead. So we finally, because we were dead, were able to get back to our rucks. I think by this point, it was, close to 4 in the morning or so like that. We got back to our rucks. We picked up our rucks. Command sent us back to the original drop-off area, so they sent us back to the parade field to kind of just get everything organized so that we could do basically a hard reset is what was happening. We got everything we needed, did a head count, made sure we had everybody, and then from there, we were to move out and find a place that we could set up a defensive position just so we could sleep through the night. We were given the objective. I think one of us had the good idea. I don't know if it was Jim, our cadre, Keg, or if it was E-House. I don't know who. We went back down the RV path. Mind you, this is the third time we've been down this path now, and we said, all right, we're going to hang left of where the parking area was where we originally parked. We were then going to find the wood line kind of next to what we called a farmhouse. There's a farmhouse next to this down airplane. Get to that wood line, get our whole group of Keg, and just hide in the woods. Get in the woods so we can find a place to sleep, kind of set up your sleeping gear, bunker down for the night. We took all of our gear. We rucked back down to this original point that we'd been at. We finally decided to push into those woods. We got into the woods. We were given the okay to set up our sleeping systems. At this point, I didn't really care. I just took out my foam mat that I had on the back of my ruck, laid that down in a nice dry area, laid down on that, kind of used my ruck. Actually, not even my ruck. I used my helmet as a pillow, and I was just so tired of getting rolled by Russians at this point that I even I pulled a grenade out of my pocket and I slept with a grenade in my hand. I've never done that any airsoft game before, so that was pretty cool. And I got I want to say that's the night I slept the best. I started getting a little cold, wasn't too bad. Again, I probably should have used my bivvy at night, but like it wasn't like bad enough where I needed to use it. I'm gonna be honest, I was more concerned that we were gonna get rolled again, so I wanted to be ready to get up and go if I needed to. Other people were setting up like full sleeping systems. I was like, nah, like I'm good. Like it's gonna be daylight in about 2 hours anyway. Chances are once daylight hits, Russia's gonna wanna roll us again. Lo and behold, what's crazy about this is I believe we had another squad pole watch of security. I'm not entirely sure how that worked out, but I slept pretty good the first night. I fell asleep at around probably 5 a.m. and I remember I woke up at about 9:30 in the morning. Like I didn't realize how much we actually slept, and I was shocked that nobody attacked us in that time. So from 4 to 9, Keg slept in the woods next to that kind of barn area. I got some great video of me waking up in the morning where I just do not look good at all. I had like dry face paint on that was just all smeared, and yeah, it was a long night. So anyway, going into Saturday morning, we woke up Saturday morning. I got some food in me. I threw together, kind of just it was actually my birthday the day before, and I brought an MRE pound cake, and I remember like waking up in the morning and I wanted something to eat, and obviously like there's no pancakes in MREs, like there's nothing really remotely good, but there was this pound cake, vanilla pound cake. That thing was incredible. I ate that in the morning, super good. But yeah, I had got some food in me, got my gear together, got loaded up, just kind of ready in case anything was going on. We kind of gathered around this farmhouse area for a little bit. It was kind of a slow morning at first. Our spotter had a spotter scope set up, and we could see that there was some Russian forces kind of moseying around on top of the hill that we kind of were on the night before. I'm not sure if they definitely spotted us. Like there's no way they couldn't have spotted us. We're too clumsy to not be spotted. But it was kind of just a game of like just watching them to see what they were doing for a little bit, Eventually, to our left, there was another NATO group. We could see them kind of gathering up on our left. They were getting ready to either attack a Russian group or a Russian force. I'm not really sure what happened there. But you could hear that there was some gunfighting going on. So what was happening is Russ 4 decided there was a trail on the one side of the map, kind of opposite of this hill that we were looking at. Russ 4 was going to use this trail to kind of dig into us and push in and try to get around behind us so they could attack us. This other NATO group engaged them first. We kind of fell back behind them for support, so we were like, okay, we got to go help these guys. So we cut back around through the woods, kind of behind the airplane, so we weren't out in the open. And this is when we kind of got into our first like firefight, our first real firefight for the event. Keg engaged Russ 4 on this road, which roads are not very good because it's just kind of an open kill lane for anything. So you end up on a road. You have Russ 4 at one end of the road, Keg's on the other end of the road. Everyone's kind of to the sides of the road, kind of hiding in the tree sort of thing. I found like some sort of, it looked like a post, some sort of like command post building or something. I kind of found that, used that as cover. I was engaging some people who were using blank fire on the enemy team. That was kind of fun. I just kind of popping around the corner, taking shots every now and then. Just kind of trying to lay down as much support as I could so we could get the rest of Keg moving up, get the rest of our machine guns moving up so we could start to advance on these Russians and get them out of there. So that firefight lasted quite a while.
All right, you're up. Yeah. What? Yeah, I don't think I can reach these guys. Yeah, they're a little too far for me. Hey, I need a medic over here! Who needs it? He does. Fucking Christ. He needs the water. He needs the water? Okay, I got water on me. You've already used 2 tuna kits? No, I just need something. Oh, you need another one? Yeah, dude. No, I didn't. Here. No, I have one. Down by the fucking... Field stuff. I got a guy on the far left, down by the fucking creek. Alright, hey. Fucking get a fucking beat on him. He's sticking out like a sword. Alright. Yep.
That was fun. There was blank fire going off next to me. Finally, I was in the action. That was something that really was like, it was cool. It was fun to feel like I was in finally like an infantry type scenario. And, a couple of our guys started going down, and, I was running around and trying to like help revive people at this time. I was following E-House a little bit. He had the machine gun, so I was kind of up behind Eric a few times, you know, kind of laying down as much fire as I could. Basically just trying to make yourself as useful as possible, but kind of also don't be dumb about it. Like, try to be smart about it. And yeah, so I laid down some couple rounds, you know, started hammering them a couple times. I actually got a few kills at this point, which is surprising because my gun was only running like 300 FPS during this event, but I could actually reach out and I actually was able to touch a few of the Rust 4 guys. So I got a few kills, which was kind of cool. And Milsim West is very fun because when you get a kill, like, people kind of fake their deaths to add to the realism, so that was fun. But yeah, eventually, you know, as is in a firefight, I took a hit. I think I was trying to revive somebody and I took one right to the helmet and then I was down. And it was just very difficult. It was like you take some shots, you'd get hit, you get revived, you'd get up, take another shot, you get hit. And then by the second time I was down, we didn't have any medic water with us at this time, so I was out. So I bled out at this point. Finally, the Rust 4 guys kind of swept around into the field and they used the junkyard by the airplane as coverage. They then took the junkyard and kind of swept around, pushed us up towards the tree line. It was at this point that they kind of had the majority of the area. There was no winning this firefight at this point, so we got rolled again.
But then everyone just fucking camped out at the barn.
And then airsoft happens.
Yeah.
But that's just what happens, you know. It's an infantry-based kind of style war that's kind of going on, you know, BB war. And the Russians were good, you know. They had their crap together. They were fast. The Russians know how to really, like, how to move as a good team. They're organized, and they're not afraid to get up in front and really put themselves forward to attack you. They're running a much lighter kit compared to our heavier 30-pound, you know, kits that we're running, so it's easier for them to mobilize and really, like, be quick on their toes and, like, get to cover as quick as possible and, like, advance and lay down as much fire as possible. It was just fun to see the different tactics being used because at this point I was dead. I was kind of just sitting around waiting and watching Russia just kind of kick her ass, which is kind of cool. The Russian guys were kind of bros at this point. They were being bros about it. And we went back to our rucks, our sleeping areas. Yeah, so that was like the end of that. I don't know what happened. This was the stupidest thing ever. Some NATO guy, I don't know if it was a NATO leader or what, we were all dead. This NATO guy comes out of nowhere. Mind you, there's like Russian dudes all around us, right? This NATO guy comes up out of nowhere. He goes up to Eric and he's like, I'm gonna try to get you guys out here. I got water in my backpack or ammo or some bullshit, right? He had something for us. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna get you guys out here. Eric's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Freaking one of the Rust 4 guys turns around, dumps this guy in the back. This guy drops. He goes down. We're just like, what is happening? So the leader of the Russian group goes up to this NATO guy that was like trying to rescue us, straddles him like a dog, and he goes, you know what they call people like you? Blue Falcons. It stands for buddy fucker. And he was just nailing into this guy. This guy who was trying to rescue us had 5 bottles of BBs on him. That's like enough to supply like a whole company. The Russians got all the BBs, all the medic water, everything that we needed to last us for that day in that single moment by this one idiot, got taken by the Russians. And that changed the whole game for us. That was embarrassing to watch. I don't know what this guy was thinking. That was an airsoft level mistake. I don't know why you would try to rescue somebody with like 5 freaking bottles of BBs on you. Because mind you, at Milsim West, BBs are issued to you. You don't bring your own BBs. Ammo is distributed by cadre or whatever. So like, really stupid. So at this point, we were depressed. We were angry at this guy. Things were not looking good for us. So they said, okay, we're going to pick up Keg and we're going to make you guys ruck and move again. And this time we're going to make you ruck to the prison. The prison was kind of across from where the soccer field was, or the parade field. And so we finally, I don't know, it was probably evening in the day by this point. I don't know, maybe like 1 or 2 o'clock. We rucked back to the prison. At this point we were tired of moving, man. Like, it was just like, come on. We're like sick of moving. Get to the prison. There was already like some other NATO groups there at the prison kind of waiting. We lined up our gear in the field. I don't know why we did that. That was really stupid. We should have had our gear like lined up on the sides of the buildings or inside the buildings. I don't know why we set up again in the middle of an open field between 2 buildings in a prison. Like, it wasn't safe at all. It's super just poor decision. We'd go out kind of on little missions every now and then around the area just to make sure Rust 4 wasn't really like sneaking up on us. There was kind of a junkyard north of where the prison was. We were kind of worried the Russians were going to get to that junkyard and like make an advance on us. So I think a few times I went back and forth there to check with 7-3, just kind of, you know, we were simply just doing some recon a little bit. It was nothing crazy, kind of boring, honestly. Finally, there was like some engagement started happening, nothing too crazy. The Russian forces, they moved up to the I'm gonna call it the junkyard. It's different from the junkyard by the aircraft. This is a junkyard by the train tracks. The Rust 4 guys pushed up to that junkyard and they kind of held it. And they were just kind of like the Monty Python scene where the guy's on top of the castle, you know, slapped his helmet and he's like, oh, you can't get up here. That's kind of what the Rust 4 guys were doing. They were just kind of sitting at this junkyard, kind of just like lobbing BBs at some of us NATO guys who were surrounding around what we call like the boiler house. So we moved up to this boiler house because we started hearing blank fire going off around this area. We thought the Rust 4 guys were pushing up on us. Some small firefights started happening at this time. I know me and Coulter went up there at this one point because I remember me and Coulter kind of were stuck together. Some guys not really attached to us, like I want to say randos. I don't know if that's an offensive term, but some random guys from NATO were kind of getting into engagements with Rust 4. And anytime they got hit, we were kind of pulling them out and just kind of taking their place and lobbing some shots down at the Rust 4 guys at the junkyard. It got to a point where the Russian forces like pushed around, they came around the building and they just like wiped us out.
Hit!
But then I don't know why they turned around and they reset. They went back to the junkyard. It got to a point where eventually we collected enough people to kind of make an advance on this junkyard. We made this advance on the junkyard and I ended up charging, running out, following some Marine impression guys into the junkyard. Found out that kind of walking over blown up buildings is a lot harder than it looks. Like, especially when you're wearing a lot of gear, your leg placement is very important to how you're stepping over like crushed piles of rubble and stuff like that, but they make excellent things to use as cover. I will tell you that. You know, that was kind of effective for a little while. Eventually we kind of decided to do a harder push further into Russian territory. I got up, I followed some Marines in a charge and we charged at this enemy building. It kind of looked like a train station building. I was making the rush, I was running across, and then I just got domed by a BB, fell to the ground, acted out my death like you're supposed to. Kind of disappointing because I really wanted to last a little bit longer. I wanted a little bit more engagements at this point. I was dead. It was one of the cool things about Milsim West is when you die, the enemies are allowed to search you. They have to ask permission to search you first, but if you're dead, they can search your kit for any sort of intel or any information that you may have on you. So I was a dead guy kind of laying there with these Marines. We got killed after rushing this junkyard. It was the first experience I had where like I had an enemy search me, you know, and he was super cool guy, super nice, but I mean, it was... There's something weird feeling about being dead, and then they take your arms, they pick up your arms and they cross them over your body, and then they take your legs and they cross your leg over leg, and then they just leave you there, and then they continue moving forward. It was really like, wow, so this is what it feels like to be dead. That was the one time I got rolled by Russians and I was all right with it. The Russian guys pushed up. Again, I'm not sure why. They fell back again. They pushed up, they kind of kicked our butt, and then they went back again instead of attacking our, like, they were only a couple yards away from our main patrol base, but they turned back. I'm not sure why, because I went back to base after being dead, resupplied for a little bit. I'm telling you, I would have been going a lot harder if I was Rust 4, because like I want to say they showed mercy. They definitely showed mercy because we were screwing up so bad. I think people were starting to eat, like they were trying to get some food in at this point. I want to say we were on a lunch break, even though there was no breaks during Milsim West. The game runs 24/7. I don't think anyone was really expecting it either. I just remember E-House comes out of nowhere. He runs up like sweating and he's like, guys, there's like a whole 2 platoons of Rush 4 is pushing up on us right now. Like, get your shit up. We're gonna get rolled pretty soon. Like, they're coming to get us. And nobody reacted. Like, I was the only person who reacted. Like, I got up. I think me and Nick Fox are the only people who reacted. We got up. I grabbed my rifle. I got my gear. Immediately, I took position on a wall because I could see the Russians were starting to advance from behind us. I knew what they were up to. They were coming around from behind us. They were trying to flank us. They had like probably more than 2 platoons. They might have had 3 platoons. It was a lot of dudes. in the middle of this trail just past the fence on the back of the prison. E-House went another way with Lutz. I think their idea was they were going to flank the Russians who were trying to flank us, while me and a couple of dudes stayed at the prison to hold defense in the prison itself to make sure they didn't come from the back entrance of the prison. And this is when, like, probably one of the coolest firefights of the whole game took place is right here. You know, I started dumping rounds. I was like, guys, like, we need help. You know, we were so low on ammo at this point. Like, it was bad. Nobody had ammo, I think. And basically, we started engaging the enemy. The enemy started throwing smoke grenades, trying to, you know, get off of this trail so they could flank around us. I was just sitting there for a good amount of time, just dumping rounds into this trail. I mean, I was plinking them from far away. But they were like the Russians do. They were just throwing hordes of people down this trail to get them up. And a couple of the NATO guys were coming around from each side to keep the Russians from pushing outside of this trail as I was firing into it, which was effective at first. It was really starting to work. And it was just super cool firefights. It was like, I mean, I'd be dumping rounds, reloading, dumping rounds, reloading. Awesome experience. Like, that's probably my favorite point of the whole game, I want to say. Grenades were going off. Blank fire was going off. It was freaking cool, man. It was, you know, at one point I was laying on the ground. I was trying to refill the gas in my rifle, and this dude's shells from his blank fired M4 were like flying at me and like just falling all over me. There was smoke and all sorts of stuff. But it was interesting. It was a different environment to be in. And you know, I don't wear earplugs. It was really loud. Like, blank fire was going off. And sadly, though, another group of Russian dudes came up from the other side of the prison from behind us. They started flanking around, and we just didn't have the numbers to defend us against them. We were starting to run low on people, and we were running low on ammo. We did not have the ammo necessary to defend against like a whole company of Russian dudes. Company, platoon, battalion, whatever, I don't know. Yeah, they finally pushed through the walls of the prison. They got in. You know, I gave some good rounds. I was dumping full auto at this point, trying to kill Russians who were trying to revive teammates. But it's whatever. Eventually, you know, me and Nick Fox, we were throwing grenades because we ran out of ammo at this point. We were anything we had, we were throwing at them. We got rolled. It didn't work. We tried to defend as long as we could. We had a pretty good defense, though. We lasted a good amount for the amount of Russians attacking us. There was only like probably 3 platoons of us, and it took like an entire Russian company to eliminate us. So, sucked. We got our ass kicked one more time. Unfortunately, because this happened, we then had to pick up our rucks and move again. At the prison, we got all of our gear. We were told to put our rucks on, gather everything we needed because we were going to be moving again. And basically, this time we were going to be moved into kind of the town area, more into the urban environments. And basically, they moved us and a good majority of NATO to the embassy. When we got to the embassy, there was already a lot of other NATO forces there that had already kind of been like, I don't know if they just got there or not, but basically all of Keg met up with some other NATO factions, and we ended up camping out at the embassy for Saturday night. And at this time, the temperature was starting to drop down a little bit. It was starting to get cold again. I was just kind of getting a little fed up because it felt like, you know, every single engagement we were in, we just kept getting pushed back by Rus 4 even harder. But the good thing is when we got to the embassy, we finally were able to get an ammo resupply. I'm not really sure how we got that. I was able to get my sleep system finally laid out and everything situated. I found a nice wall that I laid up against. But before we were able to sleep, we set up a watch rotation. Lane figured that out with the other platoons about who was taking watch at what time. I think I was put on the last watch at like probably 4 in the morning or so. So I was given the majority of time to sleep, which was kind of nice. I didn't have to wake up like, you know, I wasn't falling asleep at like 9 and waking up at like 12 o'clock. Saturday night was pretty difficult though, because now my anxiety was a little bit more heightened. We had been getting pushed by the Russians constantly this entire event. Pretty miserable, I want to say, compared to sleeping in the woods on Friday night. Trying to sleep at the embassy on Saturday night, I don't know why, I just had a pounding headache that whole night. I was drinking plenty of water. Like, I was definitely not dehydrated. I don't know if it was just exhaustion or if I was just tired, but I literally could not sleep Saturday night. A lot of other people were definitely getting sleepy. You could hear a lot of people were snoring pretty loudly. So, you know, that's the one thing that's kind of funny about these Milsim events is they're supposed to kind of keep some noise discipline, but regardless of trying to keep noise discipline, people will snore super, super loud. You know, like there's some snores, you can hear people snoring from like at least 100 feet away because it's that bad. You know, that made it a little bit harder harder to try to sleep. But yeah, I had a super bad headache, just could not sleep. And then what was really annoying, I don't know what happened, like in the middle of the night, I think it was the bottleneck guys who are they're like the Marine impression group. They do like Marine style kits. They were on top of the hospital just across the street, and I was like trying to sleep, my eyes were closed, and then like all of a sudden I heard this like super loud megaphone or boombox or radio or something just came on, and I don't know what the heck they were doing. They started like blasting music on top of the hospital in the middle of the night. They must have thought they were being some like cringe funny thing or whatever, but everyone else was miserable and they did not like it. After a few songs were played, someone ran up there and I think told them to stop, because that obviously like disobeys all discipline for, you know, noise and stuff of that nature. So finally things started getting quiet around 1 a.m. Saturday night. I did finally start to fall asleep, but I kept waking up to explosions going off in the distance. There was probably in the building down the road from us, there was a group of NATO guys who were trying to kind of pick on some Rust 4 guys who had this building. It was getting a little bit closer and closer throughout the night, which was making it more difficult to sleep because I was worried the Rust 4 guys were going to come for us next. But little did I know it was actually a group of NATO guys who were picking on some Russians. But yeah, the grenades kept going off throughout the night. You could hear blank fire going off, and it would wake me up every now and then. And it was a little frustrating. It was kind of cool though, but trying to sleep through that sucks pretty bad. It was probably around 4 a.m. My squad leader, Lane, finally came up to me to come wake me up to tell me that it was my turn to take watch. And I was already awake by this point, and I just remember Lane like kind of walked over, and I was like, "Good morning, Lane. How are you doing on this wonderful morning?" And he was just like, "Oh no, you didn't sleep at all, did you?" And I was like, "No, I did not sleep a single bit." So when it was my turn for watch, I got up like super fast, like no issue whatsoever, threw my stuff on, threw my gear on, and then went right to watch. As I just kind of stood at the gate, the entrance of the embassy, the side facing the hospital, and just kind of, you know, scanned the area, just making sure that there was no Rust 4 guys, you know, moving up on us. Pretty basic, pretty boring, you know, watch, nothing really too exciting about watch. And then it was time for another group to take over, but because it was already morning, we had gotten orders that we were going to be getting up like super early so that we could get out of that area, because we were worried that if we stayed there too long, Rust 4 was going to try to make another advance on us. So we had been given orders, you know, hey, get some food in you real quick, start getting your gear ready in case we need to move out, sort of thing. So once my watch was over, I kind of laid back down against my ruck, found like a small snack to eat. I wasn't really hungry at this time. I had like a bag of Skittles or something. And then I started trying to get people up so they could start getting their gear ready. So I was like, all right, guys, like, hey, we got to eat up because we're going to move out. We had then been given orders that all of Keg in this NATO force, this NATO faction, was going to be moving out of the embassy and going to be relocated to a different area. But 7-3, my squad was going to be staying behind at the embassy to kind of work as a quick reaction force to kind of defend the embassy and hold off the embassy to get our people out. One of the things we ran into at this game, and I just want to say in general, people take a lot of time to get their rucks and their gear back together. It shouldn't take you more than like 3 minutes to do that. And in some instances, there was a lot of people who were taking up to like, you know, 10 or 15 minutes to get their stuff together. And that's not good. It was slowing us down quite a bit. You know, when someone comes up to you and they say, hey, like, get your stuff together, we got to move and get out of here, we're going to relocate, you know, we're doing XYZ, whatever, like, you should have initiative to get up and really get your gear and get going. It's not good. If you hold up, you know, if you're holding people up, then, you know, you really got to start working a little bit better on organizing your gear correctly or practicing with your gear so that you know how you can be more efficient, you know, when you're out in the field. But anyway, what ended up happening is we moved our entire group kind of out of the embassy, moved them down the road into a better area. 7-3 kind of followed down the road, but we stayed back a little bit behind, and kind of these like, they kind of look like apartment townhouses just behind the embassy. We chilled out there in the apartment townhouses for a little bit. We started seeing some weird stuff going on at the hospital across the street from the embassy. So we were like, okay, 7-3, like, let's kind of go up there, see what's going on. I think we're getting Russian contact, but we weren't really sure. Eventually, we kind of moved towards the hospital and we set up positions on the outside of the hospital because we were seeing what looked like flashlights and stuff inside the hospital, but we weren't sure if it was Russian or NATO or not. We couldn't really get any contact into the inside of it. There wasn't supposed to be anyone in the hospital at this time, so we assumed that there was probably enemies in the hospital. They probably snuck in either through the tunnel system that leads into the hospital. We weren't really sure. So the idea was we were going to set up kind of on the outskirts of the hospital so that when they tried to leave, we could basically attack them and get them, or just kind of keep them in the hospital so they couldn't go anywhere else. So we set up positions on the outside of the hospital. Turns out there wasn't anyone in there. I think it was just some NATO guys screwing around. I'm not really sure what happened. I don't know. It was all kind of a blur, honestly. And night quickly turned into morning. I remember eventually I switched my night vision out for my GoPro camera. It was really early in the morning. It was probably like 5:30 or 6. A huge group of Rus 4 kind of swept in from the left. They came in from the motel area. They swept from behind the motel area around to a transit station that was located near the hospital. So we were like, absolutely not. Like, we got to get these guys, because if they get to that transit station, they're going to get to the hospital next. So we ended up charging the Russians. So it was kind of a force-on-force type thing. The Russians kind of came in one way, we came in another, and we got to the transit station first, and they started throwing grenades at us, and we kind of bunkered in a little bit behind the buses, and a small firefight took place here. Unfortunately, at this time, my GoPro died, so I did not get any footage of this engagement. The engagement didn't last too long. We were at the transit station. I was kind of using the corners of buses, trying to get around and get some shots on some Russian dudes. They quickly flooded behind the transit station. And what really sucked about this moment is I remember Eric went up to one of the doors on the transit station, the building, and he tried to open it up so we could get inside so we could get some better cover. Well, we pulled on the door handle and the door just did not open. We were like, oh shit, it's locked. So it means that we can't go in there, right? So we still had to fight on the outskirts of the transit station as Russian dudes were quickly pouring in. And again, grenades started getting closer and closer. And then I turned to my right and I see some Russian guys inside the transit station, and they're trying to push the door open so they can get me. I turned to my right and I switched to full auto, and I just dumped like a whole mag into a Rus 4 guy. He didn't call it though. I mean, I watched it go like right up his plate carrier. He didn't call it. He shot me in the leg. I took one in the leg. I went down, and they somehow, I don't know what happened, but the door was locked for us from one side, but it was open on the other side of the building where they were. So they snuck in through the building that we thought no one was allowed into, and they got behind us. They opened the door, and that's how they poured in. They flanked us through the transit station, and that sucked because I was dead. You're supposed to act out your death. I went down, I kind of laid on my back, and then grenades just started going off all around us, which really sucked. I had a grenade land right in my groin, and it went off, and it was not fun at all. I mean, I literally like it was like this, and I couldn't do anything. I tried to throw it, but when it went off before I could throw it out of the way, it just landed like right in my crotch and blew up. I had a grenade go off to my left, grenade go off to my right. They hammered the crap out of that transit station. They really did not want us there. Eventually we bled out, and we ended up falling back behind the embassy, I believe. We ended up falling back. I think the Rus 4 guys, they kind of got pushed back a little bit too. I think what happened is they were starting to run low on ammo. I'm not really sure. We were able to get our hands on some medic water, and then we kind of pushed to the hospital. So we were like, okay, we got to defend this hospital now, because the Russian dudes, like, they're right there at the transit station. The hospital is our platoon base. We cannot let them take our platoon base because we have all of our supplies, our medic water, our ammo is sitting here in this platoon base right now. So we need to defend this. Our group 7-3 ended up on the roof at one point, and I remember getting through the hospital. It was really warm in the hospital. We were so used to being cold outside. I walked into the hospital, finally got my camera working, and I was very tired. My plate carrier was starting to get pretty heavy. I was starting to get really, really hungry. I did not eat enough that morning. It's funny enough, before this engagement started happening, I took kind of an MRE and I put an MRE in my pocket because I was like, okay, I want to eat this on the go because obviously I'm not going to have my ruck with me. I'm only going to have my main kits, my main essentials. I remember climbing up the flight of stairs to get to the roof of the hospital, and I was just like dead tired. I was so low on energy. I was starving at this point. I reached down to grab the MRE in my pocket so I could, rip that open and start eating, because at this point things were quiet. The Russians were kind of just held up in the transit station. We had the hospital, and it wasn't there. My MRE was not in my pocket. Somehow along the way, it must have been when they attacked the transit station or something, it must have slipped out of my pocket. So at this point, I had no food. I was very hungry, and I was all out of water as well. I checked my canteen, and there was maybe that much water left. So I had to try to reserve as much water as I could, but I was tired, I was sweaty, I was overheating, and it was very cold that morning. It was probably around 30 degrees, I want to say, because there was frost on a lot of stuff, and you could feel it. It was pretty cold in the morning. So anyway, we got to the roof after climbing a whole bunch of stairs. We got my squad 7-3 organized on top of the roof. The Russians were still down at the transit station, and we were actually in range of them, so we started plinking from a distance, you know, started shooting down at the Rust 4 guys sitting at the transit station. They were kind of being a little cheap about it. Like, they were doing stuff like they're opening up doors, like glass doors, and using the glass door as cover basically, but you could see through the glass door back at us. So that's kind of, I've done it too. You know, I can't lie. It's cheap, but it's airsoft. At the end of the day, it's a game. We just started laying down as much fire as we could onto the Russian guys in the transit station. And I don't want to say as much fire as we could. We were actually trying to be very conservative with ammo at this point because we weren't sure how much we really had on us. I think people were starting to get a little low from the prior firefights that we had earlier. Keeping our heads low, you know, trying to stay low behind the wall on top of the roof of the hospital, and just point out any movement that we could see coming around, you know, the whole field. We had a pretty good view of everything that was happening within the area. So there's a whole group of Russian guys started moving up from the motel again, and they were starting to make a hard push towards our hospital building. Firefights started breaking out again. We started dumping a lot of rounds down at them. They were using a lot of blank fire back at us, so we had to duck a lot of times. So a lot of blank fire was going off. They were trying to throw grenades up at us, but it was a little ineffective. They weren't really getting them up to the roof. They were going off like just shy before of getting within range of us. So we had the high ground. I'm gonna say that. It's the Obi-Wan Kenobi quote. We had the high ground, and being on top of the hospital was really effective because when you're shooting down, like it's pretty impossible for people to get to where you are. On the lower part of the hospital building, there was some more NATO guys kind of spread out. Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was fun getting to firefight on top of like an actual building. I've never done that in airsoft ever. Like, this was such a whole new experience to me. But the one thing that I have to point out is being on top of the roof of this hospital was super sketchy because there was a thin layer of frost on the roof of this building, and the roof of this building was probably some sort of vinyl type material, so it was super slippery.
Be careful, Eric.
And if you weren't careful, you could easily slip and fall, and the edges of the roof of this building were very short. We're very top-heavy people wearing these things. You got to be careful. One slip, man, and you could probably fall over the edge of the roof of this hospital building. So not only, you know, did you have to kind of be careful up there so that you didn't get hit, you had to be careful watching your foot placement and stuff like that. And at one point, it was so slippery and I was getting so tired, I started crawling on all fours. It was the safest thing to do. I started slipping around like it was an ice rink. And it was at this point I ran out of ammo, and the Rust 4 team really started pushing up at this point. We were worried that they were going to go through the transit tunnel and then find their way down through the tunnel system into our building, that they were going to come up from our building. Funny enough, who actually came to our rescue was a group of the German dudes, the KVB guys, the German reenactors, who some of our friends are actually in this group. Just as we were starting to run out of ammo, all of a sudden a whole bunch of German guys come up the staircase to our rescue basically, and they kind of helped resupply us on top of the roof of this hospital. And I remember at one point I was on top of the hospital building. I was all out of ammo. One of the German guys got hit and he offered me his G36. He was like, hey man, like I'm hit, like I'm bleeding out, take my gun, use it. If you're all out of ammo, come take this gun. You know, it was one of those situations. So I went over there, grabbed this guy's G36, and I've never been a fan of G36s. I've always thought they were just like terrible guns. They've always felt super plasticky, just super junk. And I got up and I started using this guy's G36, and this thing was just a buzzsaw. It was just ripping down on the Rust 4 guys.
I'm grabbing your gun if you're okay with that. Just remember, it's a G36, so you have what I have. Can you tell me? What's up?
Eric turned to me and he's like, dude, that thing rips.
God, that thing fucking rips.
This thing fucking rips.
So I don't know, I might have to do a review on a G36 at some point in the future, or do something related to German kit, because in that moment I was like, damn, these guys are really cool. They got a really cool gun. And it was a lot of fun. So I got to use something different. You know, I kind of set my M4 down in a safe place, and I had this G36 until this guy got revived. So he got revived by one of his other teammates. And you know, you gotta have imagination with it, right? It's not gonna be like, everyone takes Milsim West so seriously, like, but in reality, it's still just an airsoft game at the end of the day. So there's still an imagination aspect of it. So, you know, I'm not in the military. I don't know any of that military junk bull crap. Like, I know some of this stuff, but not all of it. So yeah, there's an imagination aspect where it's like, oh, I'm dying, take my gun, you know, that sort of thing. So it was fun. It was cool to just kind of act out and just have fun with it on top of the roof of this building. So eventually, I gave the gun back to this German guy who let me borrow his gun, and I crawled back over to my M4. I refilled with gas, crawled back over to some German guys. I refilled with ammo, kind of teamed up with Eric and began trying to lay down fire on some advancing Russian guys below us. They had us circled in all directions. They swept from behind the embassy. They cut around and swept from behind the embassy. We still had our rucks down there, but we just left them at this point. They swept from behind the embassy. They started taking the embassy, basically. There was nothing we could really do about that.
Think about it. They have the front line. Yeah, they're moving right to left. God, it's like a fucking ice rink on here. Buddy ate again! I love plates!
So, in Sunday, as everyone says at Milsim West, is usually the best day. It was starting to get close to the end of the day. By this point, it's probably 9 o'clock, I want to say. And the game was probably going to end around 10:30. So, like, everyone, like, both sides are just trying to use all their ammo and get as much, like, crazy gameplay in as possible in the last day. The Russian guys were getting a little close, so we were trying to push them back on top of the roof. We were like, all right, we got to get downstairs now. They're starting to take the embassy, so we got to fall back to the embassy and try to keep the Russian guys out of the embassy. So we went downstairs, kind of got to see like a whole bunch of NATO guys in our PB, just kind of like, it was crazy. It was like a scene from like a military movie. It was like everywhere you look, there was some dude in a different NATO like group or faction inside of our PV, because we had all fallen back and pushed back to this one spot, which probably isn't good. Like in military terms, you don't want that many people in one area, but the Rush 4 guys really had us just surrounded on like all sides, and everyone was kind of resupplying inside the embassy, kind of bunkering down. And then we decided, hey, like my group, the Keg guys, were like, it's getting close to the end of the game, like who really cares anymore? Let's try to push these Russian guys back, right? So we all lined up at the bottom of the hospital. We were getting ready to kind of line up so we could go on a charge and push the wall of the embassy and then try to get around and push some Russian guys out. E-House kind of led the charge. We started running, and within a short few seconds, I didn't see it, there was a pipe sticking out of the ground hidden under a pile of leaves. I hit this pipe so freaking hard with my shin. I busted my shin and I immediately fell right on the ground, landed on my rifle. I actually bent the camera that was on the side of my rifle. I fell really hard, bruised my ribs. I'm lucky I didn't break anything, to be honest. And I want to say if I didn't have my plate carrier on, I probably would have broken a rib or something, because I fell really, really hard. I was okay though. I got back up and then began kind of running for some cover. Eventually, I think I turned left and we ran for the wall. We were starting to get up on this wall. People were starting to run low on ammo a little bit. And then it was getting so crazy at this point. Russ 4 got inside of the embassy. We were on the outside of the embassy. There was that wall in between us. And there was like a group of Russian guys who had like a ladder, like they brought a ladder. And I don't know why they were trying to use this ladder to get over the wall and like try to like shoot over at us. And like we instantly just like took grenades and threw them over the wall and just like listened to all these Russian guys just die because they were trying to use like a ladder, like Lord of the Rings style, like trying to like climb over it. We're like, oh, that's super dumb. Here's a grenade.
Hard!
So that was funny, and Eric just had his LMG just like pointed right at the tip of the ladder as these Russian guys were trying to get over. So that didn't work, so they quickly figured that out. I could see ahead of me that Abby was down. She was a member of Keg, part of like 7-1 or weapons squad. I ran over, I tried to get her up, I dragged her around, quickly got a tourniquet on her, and then like as I was trying to get a tourniquet on her, I got hit from the corner. There's like a Russian dude came around the corner. So we got squad wiped pretty much at this point. And then like this is probably the best part of the game for me. Lutz, one of my best buddies, Lutz comes up out of nowhere with a shotgun and just starts like dumping rounds into these Russian guys around the corner. And it was like the most American thing I've ever seen. And I don't know why I had the idea. I was like, I'm gonna start singing the Army recruiting theme song. So I started singing the Army recruiting theme song, and the rest of all the dead keg guys around us started singing the Army recruiting theme song as Lutz is just dumping shotgun rounds into a bunch of Russians that were trying to come around the corner.
Get him, Lutz, get him! Get him, Lutz! Fuck him up, Lutz, fuck him up!
Keep going, boy!
Na 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 na. Get him, Lutz, get him! Get him, Lutz! Fuck him up, Lutz, fuck him up!
Eventually Lutz got killed, but it was a fun moment. We all kind of realized that the game was starting to come to an end. It was just the people were starting to get too close in quarters for stuff to really have any level of organization to it, and it slowly turned just kind of into like a shitball kind of thing.
Get on this corner! Get on this corner! Yep. Give me one, left and right, left and right! I got my...
But it was fun. People were being goofy. At this point, I wasn't even sure if my gun was working because I fell in it so hard. So I was like, all right, I'm basically out for the rest of this event. It's, you know, it's almost like 10:30. This game's gonna end pretty soon. So I called myself out and then headed back to where I saw Jim and everyone else were kind of just chilling there. Yeah, like it was one heck of an experience for me. I've never been to an event that there was just such a mix of like hardcore military enthusiasts, but then also like your classic traditional airsoft crazy weirdos. So I had a really good time. I learned a lot of things from this event that I didn't think I would learn. One of the biggest things I learned prior to going to this event: never go to Quaker Steak and Lube the day before an event. I think that's why a lot of us got sick on Friday night. But the other thing I learned is heavy plate carriers really suck. I'm not sure if I'll ever wear something this heavy again or not. I'm officially a member of Keg now. I passed all the requirements and the standards that this group has to become a member of the team. One of them is, make it through a whole Milsim West event, 40 hours long with weighted plates, have the proper gear, etc., etc. So that was kind of cool. I got to patch in with my first Milsim team, and it was a nice, rewarding feeling. And I met a lot of fun new people along the way and a lot of new personalities, and I just want to say, I'm really glad I went. I'm really glad I took the time to put the kit together. It was pretty cool to get to wear something like this and kind of get an idea of how much it sucks. I hate saying that, but it gave you a greater appreciation for people who have served or who are still currently serving, who have to wear stuff like this every day for their job, basically. So thank you guys for listening to this DRZ discussion video about my experience at Milsim West Shali Assault. This was probably the longest video I've ever done. I usually don't do discussion videos like this, but being something that was a first for me and something that I've been waiting so long to go to, I just felt it was important to kind of give you guys an idea of my experience and what you can expect going to a Milsim West event as a first-timer yourself. So once again, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for letting me tell my story, because that's what this is. It's just storytelling. If you guys have any questions about Milsim West, you can comment down below, but you're probably better off asking Milsim West themselves or a cadre, because again, this is my first Milsim West, so I don't have all the experience to give you guys all the answers. But feel free to comment down below any thoughts or questions that you have about my experience. If you're wondering, more questions about like the gun that I'm running, the type of gear that I'm running, go right ahead and just comment down below. I will try to get back to those comments as soon as possible. And as always, my name is Nate. This is DRZ Airsoft. Stay safe, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace out, everyone.